Have you ever seen the news covering an oil spill? And have you seen the pictures and the videos of how harming and catastrophic these oil spills are? These oil spills happen every single day. And while they're not on as big of a scale as the ones that you'll see on the news or read in the newspapers, they're still catastrophic. And a big reason for these oil spills is the fact that we give subsidies to fossil fuel industries. According to the Environmental and Energy Study Institute, also known as the EESI, conservative estimates put U.S. direct subsidies to the fossil fuel industry at roughly $20 billion per year. $20 billion, with 20% of that currently allocated to coal and 80% of that being allocated to natural gas and crude oil. That money helps those companies produce more fossil fuels. And with more production, there will be a much greater chance of an accident occurring. So, why does this matter to us? The more money that we put into fossil fuel subsidies, the more likely we are to have an oil spill. And every time there's an oil spill, billions have to be spent to clean it up. And on top of that, it harms the environment as well as poses health threats to our own human way of life. Yes, our own human way of life. So, having seen what these oil spills can do, and researching and debating this topic for 2 months, it has shown me that subsidies for fossil fuels need to be cut down on and removed. Now, before I get into why we need to get rid of these subsidies, I'll explain the process of fossil fuel companies getting these subsidies in the first place. So, fossil fuel companies receive subsidies so they can manufacture more goods, more gas, coal, and other subsidies. Now, keep in mind, that is $20 billion annually. According to Oil Change International, companies use that money for exploration, extraction, and even development. Now, that means more mining in different areas because they have $20 billion annually to do so. And in turn, that results in more harmed environments, something we don't need any more of. When a company gets land to mine oil, that company needs at least 10 acres to be able to mine. And that is just for one mining plant. A singular mining plant requires 10 acres. The Wilderness Society states that extracting gas and oil disrupts wildlife habitats and can be deadly to animals. The main habitat that can and is destroyed are the ocean habitats. The National Ocean Service states, scientists concluded that the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, one that you may be familiar with, killed thousands of marine mammals and sea turtles and contaminated their habitats. Another example you may be familiar with is the IXTOC-1 oil spill, which resulted in somewhere between 126 million and 140 million gallons of gas being released into the southern part of the Gulf of Mexico. And now some of this oil washed up onto the beaches from the western Yucatan Peninsula all the way to southern Texas. This resulted in hundreds of millions of dollars in lost tourism revenue. And it reduced the commercial fishing in the region for as many as 5 years afterward. Now think about that. Not only are we hurting our wildlife habitats, we're also causing a problem for families that rely on that tourism revenue. The Grand Herald reports that it took up to 40,000 man-hours to clean one singular pipeline spill. So as you can see, these are not easy accidents to clean. It's not a small mistake. They take a lot of money, and as you can see with the IXTOC-1 example, it takes years to get things close to how they used to be. On top of that, the Gulf Wildlife Report from 2011 states, in total, they found that the oil spill has likely harmed or killed approximately 102,000 birds of 802 different species, and then approximately 1,165 sea turtles and up to 5,900 marine mammals, including bottlenose dolphins, spinner dolphins, melon-headed whales, and sperm whales. And as long as these companies continue to get more money from subsidies annually, this will continue to happen at a rate which is just unnecessary. Now, that doesn't mean that all oil spills can be stopped, but what it does mean is that we can cut down on the harm that we are doing to ourselves, and not just ourselves, our wildlife habitats. Another big way that these subsidies harm is the effects that it has on human life, our own human way of life. The Environmental and Energy Study Institute shows that stats estimating that the particulate matter from U.S. coal plants resulted in 13,200 deaths, 9,700 hospitalizations, and 20,000 heart attacks in 2010 alone, in a singular year. Coal-fired power plants are also the largest source of airborne mercury emissions in the United States. Air pollutants from fossil fuels also contribute to the development of lung and other cancers. Lung cancer accounts for 30% of cancer-related deaths each year. Air pollutants, such as those released from vehicles and from those power plants that rely on the combustion of fossil fuels, cause 200,000 premature deaths each year. Now, an unforeseen effect of this is the change in DNA that it can cause. This change in DNA can create mutations that can be inherited by future generations, and thus creating a generational cycle of cancer. Now that I've shown you the many ways that these subsidies for fossil fuels are harmful, let's go over what we can do and how we can speak up. So, in conclusion, if these companies continue to get more subsidies, that means more harm to habitats, more harm to wildlife, and even our own human way of life. Subsidies need to be cut down on and removed so we can reduce the chance of an oil spill happening. And not just the chance of an oil spill happening, but deaths among birds, sea turtles, and other marine mammals. And take away the chance of having a generational cycle of cancer. While we do need fossil fuels for our current way of life, we also need to protect our way of life. And we need to protect this earth which we live on, which means cutting down on the use of fossil fuels, which in turn cuts down on how much the fossil fuel industry will produce. So, petition these subsidies and get a hold of your state representatives and make it known. Let them hear that the government needs to stop funding these subsidies for fossil fuels. Thank you.